Romano managed to strike back at David at Suzuka, tightening the championship lead to a mere 4 points. Those two, along with Mark McDonald, have been an impressive force this season. None of the three have finished outside the top five in any of the first 6 rounds. Clearly, a small slip up could be costly for any one of them. We'll see if they can keep up the pace as we get ready to watch round 7 of the PRL GT4 Clubsport series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Wei Han Chan. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Silverstone has gone through a number of different iterations over its history. Today, we hop back in time a little bit to an era not long ago at this British circuit. Let's take a look at our track guide to learn a little bit more about the older version of Silverstone. Welcome to Silverstone. Most famously known for being the first circuit to host a round of Formula One, this place has since become synonymous with British motorsports. Hosting everything from sports cars to touring cars to open wheels and even motorcycles, it's a track that fits a wide variety of vehicles. With 5 different layouts to choose from, you've got a little something for any level of racing. The longest of those layouts boasts 17 turns over more than 3 miles or 5 kilometers, so it can take a bit to get around it, even in higher-powered machinery. Its main characteristics are the long straights, swift corners, and general lack of elevation change. Its most famous set of turns is definitely the Maggots-Beckett sequence, in which anything with high downforce finds itself challenged with the rapid changes of direction. While there is a fair bit of paved runoff and quick corners like Copse and Stowe, the time lost from going off can be costly. There's a few turns with opportunities for overtaking, including Vale, Abbey, and Priory, but in cars with less horsepower, expect the slipstream to be where many attempt to get by. The Hangar Straight is perhaps the most notorious for draft battles to erupt. All in all, this versatile racetrack located just northwest of London provides both history in its roots and action on the tarmac. The huge number of British fans that typically attend events are seldom left wanting. Hard to believe that it's been a decade since this version existed, but Wei Han, our drivers are well familiar with it. Why don't you familiarize our viewers with a few of the details about the layout?
Sure, we are in fact at what is called the home of British motorsport, Silverstone circuit. Of course, this being the older circuit, the older layout, it is a little bit shorter than the modern Grand Prix layout that we see at Silverstone today. It measures 5.14 kilometers long or 3.194 miles. 17 corners, so corners-wise, not exactly that much different from the current Grand Prix layout. Of course, it is missing the kind of the infield section that contains the 2 hairpins, but instead it is in its place. It was the previous bridge section, which is one of those corners that offers a lot of exciting racing action.
Yeah, it should be a good one today to watch, especially with these cars. But as always, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a look at the championships that we've got underway. I talked a little bit about how that Drivers' Championship is looking. And up at the top currently, it's still James David, but it has come down quite a bit as Romano won last round, which we didn't cover out in Japan. Mark McDonald falling back a little bit, even though he's still got that top 5 streak going, but he's going to have to hustle. And what it looked like in warm-up, he doesn't look like he's necessarily that quick today. We'll see if qualifying holds something different. LeBlanc and Flores round out your top 5, tied there for the 4th position. Now, of course, we have a team's championship as well. Wei Han, why don't you fill us in on that?
Leading the team's standings is Davidson Motorsports. They have 305 points. Just 63 points behind them is Tysonac Racing. They take second. Apex Mountain Box South, they are in third with 114 points behind the team standings leader. And we've also got SRT Esport Blue and SRT Esport Green. They take fourth and fifth respectively. Of course, they are separated by 7 points.
Now, if we have viewers who have not watched this series before, let's run down the details of today's event. Round 7 out of 10, as they will have a drop week, except for in the final round in those 10 rounds. And they're using the newest Porsche here on the iRacing service, the Cayman GT4. There's a 45-minute race in this series, and it is open setup, but in that 45-minute race, you can expect one pit stop for fuel. And in the process, they also have to keep it clean because you can see they will be disqualified at 24 incidents and also be given a stop and go penalty at 16 incidents as well. And there's a few places that could rack those up, so they have to watch out. And then there's the bonus points down at the bottom that they could try and collect, which could be important. Those 4 points, you have to wonder if Romano had gotten 4 more bonus points over the course of the season, he could actually be tied for the lead. So all important that they make sure and claim as many of those as possible. James David holds our current provisional pole, and Marco Oliveira currently in second place, interestingly. I'm trying to figure out where Romano is. Oh, well, there he is. He just pops into second place on my timing screen now. And he's still about 3.5 tenths off Wei Han, so looks like he's got a bit of work to do here.
Yeah, it sure has. Well, of course, the fastest lap time 156.257, 4 tenths of a second between them. And of course, most of the field they are within 3 seconds with one another. Of course, bar the couple of drivers who are at the other side of the grid. We ride on board Matt Hilton at this point. Of course, the lap time for him to beat is 159, or rather, his fastest lap time previously was 159.844. So that is more than 3 seconds of the pace of the pole sitter.
Ooh, and he's got a little bit of a problem here, so this one won't count on his way out of Luffield. So we switch over to James David, our pole sitter, who's coming through Abbey. It's actually not too far ahead of Oliveira and Duval right now. Oliveira been bumped down to third by Romano just recently. This is going to be an interesting section to watch, I feel like. This tight final section that they've changed quite a bit in the more recent iteration, Wei Han, but so many slow corners here in this little infield portion.
Yeah, exactly right. This is Luffield corner, and of course you have to get this corner right in the exit right in order to get yourself a good exit through the final corner. Of course, the lap time for him to beat is 156.257. He just misses it out by just a little bit, but he still holds on to a pole position.
Marco behind him, the 44, jumps up to second once again with a 56.4, and he's displaced because Mark McDonald's, his warm-up was deceiving apparently. He's got the qualifying pace. He gets bumped down. It's all changing incredibly quickly. Romano now up to the pole, and he's got it by 2.5 tenths. So a lot of changing around happening here in qualifying. Delp, who's in 13th, comes across and does not go faster that time by. Looks like he had an off track or something with a very slow 2:13.1 that time. Flores, that was his quickest, putting him to 5th with that 56.4. Actually still waiting on 3 drivers to put times in. Simkovic, the only one of those 3 that is out on track currently. David now in second place as he comes off of club towards the latter half of the lap here. Bringing McDonald, Rodriguez, Oliveira all along with him. Bertome is also not too far behind. And there's a car stop there. That is Simkovic actually. So he's going to have to restart his qualifying and get the tires up to temperature with him, unless he actually gets the car going, which I think he finally is. I thought he took a tow, but it looks like he's not. But right now, we've got our eyes on James David Wayhan and seeing if he can get back to that top spot.
So 156.257 to beat. He does look to be in good position to perhaps beat that lap time. Is he going to come across the start-finish line in time to get pole position? Yes, he does beat his previous fastest lap time, but that is just not enough to take pole position.
9/100ths away from Romano. It is very tight up there. And the lap's just under 2 minutes in length means that he's not got too many more opportunities to try and improve on that. Flores, who we watch, has been bumped down to 6 as he comes out of Brooklands. That's LeBlanc directly behind him, who sits in 8th. Oh, Flores is actually going to pull out of the way. So maybe trying to get himself a little bit of clear space. LeBlanc comes around. He's got a 56.7 out of Woodcote. Let's see what this one holds for him. 56.5, 0.2 faster, and that's up to 7th, 1 position higher for LeBlanc. Boy, big gap between Cristelli here, who we see on screen, who did not improve that time by, and the next car back, that's James David, who's only just now coming around club, riding on board with the Canadian. So it gives us a good idea of what it takes to try and be quick as we ride along on his dash.
So this section they are coming up upon, this is in fact the older section, the bridge section. This very corner, of course you do see that he does lift to make his way through that corner, but if your tires are warmed out enough, you can actually take that corner near flat out. Prairie corner, of course, making good use of the entry, and this is the sharp left-hander before this left-field right-hander. Now this is one section where, oh sorry Joe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is one section where we would see a lot of overtaking action, you know, this being towards the end of the circuit. This is where a lot of the overtaking action will happen because this is kind of the more contentious point. Also, the corners make it such that it is easy for cars to kind of pass each other and also even make some switchbacks with the sweeping hairpins.
Whoa, Bertome up to pole, and now once again, McDonald takes it away. 55.8 for the 216. Romano, as he comes across, does not improve that time by. He's nearly 0.2 off of our pole time at this point. That is a shocker for Jerome Bertome. Not a terribly slow driver, but usually we see him in the mid-pack. I wonder if he used a little bit of slipstream here because he's been riding behind Prue, at least for much of this lap. LeBlanc looks like he goes a little bit faster that time, about 0.2 quicker, and that's going to get him up into P5, at least only temporarily, because Flores takes P5 back away from him. So much changing here. Suspect that looking how all the cars are clumped together, I guess that the slipstream plays a big part with this being a relatively large circuit for these small cars. Watch from Bertone. And still just behind Sebastian. Sebastian is actually close enough, though. He might be held up a little bit here. Ahead of them, first one that's going to cross to start his final flying lap will be James David. So if he doesn't get the pole back this time through, he's going to have to try a little bit harder and get one last shot at it. Out of Laffield and through Woodcote he goes. The 89 down to the finish line. It's going to be quicker, a 55.7. That indeed puts him up to the pole. Kenny Duval crosses a 56.4, his quickest lap, but it doesn't give him any positions. Looks like Sebastian Prue didn't go quicker, and neither did Bertome. McDonald also no dice. Marco Oliveira still looking for another one. Romano looks like he goes mildly faster, but he's still stuck on the second row, 9/1000ths behind McDonald and just outside of the front row. So we watch Glenn Bowen now finish up his lap. Should have just enough time to start one final run. He is going to elect to stay out for this last go. 253 is currently scored in 16th. We're only waiting on 2 cars to put times in. Bowen does improve his time, but he doesn't go up any higher on the timing sheets. Looks like Kenny Rodriguez is on a slow lap here. And he's not going to have enough time to start a new one, sadly, because of that. So James David will take the checkered flag here, and he's coming through bridge down into Priory. He's already got the pole, and it's by 5/100ths over Mark McDonald. Can he hold on to us? Does he need to improve? Because the drivers have been seeing the times tumble down as the qualifying has gone on. Out of Luffield, he's got the most wins of anybody so far. 3 on the board. Can he add another pole to it? He doesn't go faster, so if anybody finds any time here, 56.4 for Duval. That puts him up a little bit higher. McDonald goes faster, and he takes the pole away. It's not safe, though. Oliveira up to only 6 with that one. Romano, can he snatch it away? No! 55.8. That's not going to do it. Padavani doesn't get a time in the end as he abandons his lap. Eric Luke coming around. The 709 sitting in 10th place. And a 56.5 is going to be slightly faster, but looks like he doesn't go any higher on the sheets. Spencer Simkovich, the last across the line with a 57.5, manages to go faster, but not higher up on the timing sheet. So what a surprise that was in the end. Mark McDonald coming in and showing him how it's done. Let's go through that starting grid. McDonald on the pole, followed by James David in second position with Giovanni Romano down in third, but still very tight in terms of time. Jerome Bertome, a bit of a shock, 4th place, but a good shock. And then Eric LeBlanc will be starting in 5th. You've got Marco Oliveira starting in 6th spot, then Jorge Flores in P7. Sebastian Prue is 8th today, and then Kenny Duval starts in 9th. Eric Luke will round out your top 10, Weihan.
Kenny Rodriguez begins from 11th, and alongside him will be Mark Schiller in 12th. Nicholas Delp and David Cristelli begin from 13th and 14th. Spencer Semkovich and Matt Hilton 15th and 16th. We've also got Glenn Bowen, the last of the lap time setters. He begins from 17th.
And you see Padavani and Hotham down there without times. Now, Padavani looks like he is planning on taking part since he at least got out for qualifying, even though he didn't set a time. Looking to see if Hotham is in the session. He is. So hopefully he will be able to grid. With that, we're waiting for the cars to now set up on the grid itself. Should be a fun one for a 45-minute race, and we're in towards the latter half of the season now. Only 4 rounds left, including today. So, Weihan, results are going to be important because it could set you up with an easier time trying to challenge guys like David coming to the final rounds, or a much harder time.
Very much. So drivers beginning to take the grid. Of course, we are at the 7th round. So, for the drivers, especially for the drivers where their points are much closer to one another, there is still opportunity to kind of shake up the points standings. A full pace lap here at the classic Silverstone, so I think we will have plenty of to talk about the racing on this circuit, Joe.
Absolutely. And they're just waiting for a few more of them to line up on the grid. I mentioned the 3 wins for James David. It's 2 for Giovanni Romano right now, and then McDonald's, who's a little ways back that I showed in the points, 19 behind the leader. He only has a single win thus far. And that win actually, I believe, came at round 1. Yes, it did. Laguna Seca for Mark McDonald. That one started with a little bit of chaos into the first corner. So wonder if that is what caused him to get the win more so than his pace in these other races. I would normally say that's the case, but we've seen him be quick at places like Sonoma as well. Just looks like, oh, yeah, everybody is out there now. So we're going to follow behind the Porsche pace car. You talked about really being able to dissect this track as we watch them go around the pace lap here, Wayhan. One of the more unassuming corners, I feel like, is this first one into Cops. This is such a fast turn. And one of those ones that I mentioned earlier that can give a lot of off tracks if drivers push too hard.
Yeah, well, despite this being a kind of a near 90-degree corner, the radius is quite big, so drivers can in fact carry a lot of speed into this corner, which is very important because you want to get as much pace, especially in a car like this, which is slightly underpowered. You also want a good run up to the Maggots and Beckett's section. Of course, the start finish line on this circuit is a bit different in terms of the positioning compared to the modern Grand Prix layout. This is at this section. Of course, on the modern Grand Prix layout, this start finish line is actually in the infield section. Now, of course, on the Megas and Beckett section, it's all about trying to carry as much speed as you can over the curbs, trying not to use too much of the curbs, or you might risk running loose yourself as you go over the grass.
Yeah, certainly will be interesting since they don't have as much downforce as we see with F1 cars through there, so could be quite a bit trickier trying to carry that momentum. And here's where I suspect we saw all those drafting games play out. The hangar straight. Look at how long it is, especially with these little cars, these little Porsches, as they work their way up towards Stowe here. I wonder if we'll get a few trains going as the race goes on, if it's going to be that powerful. I didn't anticipate that being the case, honestly.
I think that'll be very crucial for drivers, especially because it is so corner that they are coming on the lead up to. Because especially for this corner, it's all about trying to get pace across as well.
Yeah, I can
They come upon what is the club corner. Sorry, Joe. This is a braking zone. It's a left-hander, but what's more crucial is this corner that comes right up here. You've got tarmac on both sides as opposed to grass. So some drivers might take advantage of because the tarmac runoffs along the inside and the outside of the corner.
Yeah, I always found that one a little bit tricky, but then I was never very good at chicanes that had a long, long second half like that. Someone will have to eventually teach me how to take it properly. You can see them now heading down to Abbey. Quite a few chicanes, quite a few heavy braking zones. So I assume passing shouldn't be too difficult of a proposition here.
Well, I think this would of course be one of the more prime overtaking sectors. This being the final sector. Well, as you just said, I think we've just made it past a good part of the circuit. We are already coming towards the end of the circuit. This Prairie corner, of course, this is where it's all about trying to position your car well, because what comes after this is this exact tight left hairpin. Then left field, which means that if you are along the inside or the outside of Prairie, you will get the inside of left field.
All right, they're coming out of Luffield now, and the Porsche pace car is going to duck away in. David is hanging back a little bit here. He's going to want to get up there a little bit tighter with McDonald as the green flag waves, and he already loses out on second place. Romano is not going to sit around and wait for it. Much of the front of the field gets single file as they come into Cops. What about everybody else? Looks like they're going to follow suit. A little bit of side-by-side racing, but looks clean through the first corner. Now it's into the Maggots and Beckett sequence, Wayhan.
Would look like James David is going to have a good time putting pressure on Giovanni Romano as they make their way through Maggots and Beckett. It's all about trying to get the best momentum, trying to be as straight as possible through this section, and they come upon the hangar straight. Slipstream time for everyone. Someone's gone around in the background there.
I think that's
that
Duval.
would appear to be Duval.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second to see what happened to him. Romano, though, he's being chased by David, is not caught by him. We do have a change for position, and fifth with Flores going by Bertome around the outside. There's that slipstream. Bertome's not done with it yet because as they come out of Vale into the club chicane, Oliveira takes a little bit of a look. He's not quite close enough to attack. They're going to stay single file. McDonald's still your leader. Romano second. David in third. That's your podium as they head towards Abbey. Oh, and a car spinning. That's Bertome. Into the wall, out of club, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was quite a difficult corner to make it through. Of course, with these Porsche Cayman GT4 cars, you don't exactly have the stiffest suspension, and it is easy to kind of send your car around if you are not careful. They come upon this sector of the circuit. This is where a lot of overtaking moves will take place. Mark McDonald still leads this race. Romano and David in second and third, respectively, as they come upon left field and begin setting themselves up for Woodcote and coming across the start-finish line for the second time this race.
David's putting a fair bit of pressure on Romano. He's holding on to the back of him as they complete lap 1. Let's see if they can take Copses just as well as we took it the first time. So far, so good for both of them. That AstroTurf can slip you up, and a little bit of a slow exit from Romano puts him under more pressure from David, but just not brave enough to try and force the issue, although he cuts off a lot of the course there. Coming into Maggots and Beckett's, he's aggressive here, trying to push the limits of the track boundaries.
Hanger straight once again. Is David going to get enough of a slipstream to perhaps make this move work as they prepare for the entry into Stowe Corner? Along the inside peaks David, but I think he's just not close enough for the overtaking move to work. Of course, he does see a gap. He tries to go for it, but just not close enough.
Romano almost shaken off the apex there. Another little look down into Vale. Still not confident enough. He might be biding his time. This is actually bringing Jorge Flores up to the rear. So we've got a three-way fight now for what is second place. Number 29 could insert himself into things. They come up to the braking for Abbey. Nothing there quite yet for James David. I almost wonder if David now needs to be a little bit more careful about where he tries things, Wei-Han, because if it goes wrong, Flores could pounce on things.
Yeah, because at this point, as you're battling for position at this high up in the field, you also have to keep in mind the buffer that you have ahead of the cars behind you, and also the gap that you're trying to close up with the leader, which is perhaps a few positions ahead. It's always about trying to balance where exactly you want to be. David going a little bit slow through left field.
Riding on board with Flores now. Yeah, that was a terrible exit for the 89. See him nearly going wide out of Woodcote as well. This was the Achilles heel of Romano last time through Copse. I think he learned his lesson because that looks a lot more steady for him. Now, I think things have spread apart. We've got a couple replays from lap 1. First one was Kenny Duval, if I recall correctly, coming out of the Maggots and Beckett sequence. Let's see if we can pull that replay up. Figure out what happened to the number 63. Here he is on screen now. This is coming through the first part of this set of S's. Up to Chapel now. Oh, that looks very similar to Jerome's mistake there, Wei-Han.
Yeah, very much so. I think it was just a mid-corner. He was trying to nail the exit, but I think it was probably a bit too heavy on the throttle. And with these cars being that sensitive to throttle, it is easy to send your car around.
So now we're going to watch Jerome's issue. I said it looks similar. It's a big defensive move down there into the chicane. And once again, an extended corner, a long corner here, trying to get on the throttle, and the rear just starts to come around. Unfortunately, he's actually going to find the Armco. Oh, with a big thunk. Seeing a little damage on the front, but I think he may have gotten away without too much. Come back live now. Just getting by Bowen now, and the 253 is going to let him by. He already let Kenny Duval through as well. Duval has moved up to 17th. Most of our field does look like they're spreading out a little bit here, Wei-Han. Our closest fight, I think, is still that battle for second.
Yeah, we do have a look at David's battle with Romano. It is going strong at this point. Of course, Flores does want to have a piece of the pie. He is in fourth and he is a slight bit further behind. I think this could well shape up into a three-way battle. Of course, now they come onto the hangar straight where slipstream is all the more important for them.
And looks like Rodriguez had a bit of a spin here. Let's take a look at the replay. This is Cops. I'm gonna watch from on board. I talked about the slipperiness of the AstroTurf to the outside, and I suspect this is the cause. Let's watch. Oh yeah, there it goes. Pennsylvania driver off to the side. Thankfully doesn't hit anything, so he's able to get it going. Oh, and David's had a problem just now as we come back live. David's fallen down multiple positions. The 89 gets it going in club just before he gets caught by Delp, File, and Cristelli. What caused this? Oh, and he got helped around. That was Flores there, tipping him. Almost looks like he got scared under braking and stomped it a little hard as he hit the car in front. Oh, well, it was a nice little pirouette at first. And that sent him way down. He's in 8th position. He did hold back guys like Delp, who were coming up upon him when we joined him live. So this now frees up Romano with less pressure from behind, but it doesn't look like he's got anything from McDonald's right now, Wei-Han, because I'm looking at the gap and I think it's growing.
Yeah, I think Mark McDonald's has begun to find quite a comfortable position for himself. Romano a little bit aggressive over the curbs there. So yeah, 2 seconds of a gap. So if he's able to build this up, and you know how reliant these cars are on the slipstream, I think he could be able to solidify his position as we move beyond.
Really, the best battle we've got now that that's broken apart is for 9th, Delp and File. They were in train before. David, who pulled out in front of them, has already left them in the dust. So ride on board Nick, looking back at Mark File. Going to close in a little bit here in Stowe, but not nearly close enough to try and go on the attack.
Because we ride on board the roof camera of Delp. And yeah, thanks, Joe. They come upon the club section, the club corners. Of course, the gap between them is at 7/8 of a second, so I think still a little bit of a ground for File to cover before he can think of making any moves. They come upon Abbey, and this is, of course, a prime overtaking sector of the circuit. And of course, we've also got in the background, we've got Padovani in 11th. He could possibly join the fray.
Absolutely. He was one of those that did not set a qualifying time, and it seems like his pace was definitely better than that, because he's up to 11th now, having been gridded at the very back. We watch from his roof as he closes in. I have a feeling it's not going to be a pass between File and Delp. It's going to be Padovani making some overtakes here. They're back to the front stretch once they come through Woodcote. About half a second behind File. Not missing anything up at the front right now. Everybody's still spreading apart up there. Coming through Cops. Padovani not able to find quite as much as he maybe would like. Now they head through Maggots and Beckett's. Let's see if he's got anything over them through here. Certainly taking a very different line than those two. All of them looking to set up the exit off of Beckett's, through Chapel, onto the hangar straight. Is anybody going to get the slipstream? Quite.
But is anybody perhaps going to think of a move down into Stowe? Alright, very up close goes File, although not close enough for an overtaking move to work. They do come upon Fail and Club Chicane. So I think, if they keep this up, they could be in for a move or some moves to happen later on in the next few corners.
And as this has been happening, fourth place starting to come together as well. Prue and LeBlanc. You can see them coming out of the Abbey chicane now, down through Bridge. LeBlanc has been bit by bit pulling him towards him, pulling the driver ahead towards him as they now come out of Priory. Has about a car length between them. It's got to be tantalizingly close. Once again, seen very different lines between the two drivers.
Yeah, LeBlanc kind of just going a little bit loose through the middle of the corner, so I think that's kind of pushed him back just a fair bit. He sits 6/10 of a second behind Pro, so a little bit of a ground that they have to he has to cover. They come around Cobbs. Oh, I think yeah, good use of the exit curb does LeBlanc. Although I think that was a suboptimal corner, mid corner, as they come upon Maggots.
Certainly looks like the gap is much wider, and the numbers bear that out. It's a whole second between Prue and LeBlanc. Padavani's starting to look a little bit more threatening now, though. So we turn our attention back to that battle for ninth between Delp, File, and Jefferson. I think Glitterpants is getting himself set up here. This should be close enough for a slipstream. So we take a look at them coming down the hangar straight. He's going to get a little bit of extra speed, but this doesn't look like it's gaining quick enough. And indeed, down into the braking of Stowe, he's going to have to sit back for the time being.
Gets a good exit. Now coming up upon braking for Club Corner. Okay, goes very, very close to the bumper of Mark File. Along the right-hander through this club exit. And gonna make use of a little bit of a slipstream through the run up to Abbey.
He's awful close, but yet again, he doesn't see a chance quite yet to see if he can get a pass done. Guess it's getting a little bit harder for Jefferson to make those overtakes. The first few laps, he certainly gained a lot of positions. They're slow going now. Falls back a little bit into the tricky, twisty bits of the final few corners. Brooklyn's Delp, actually, credit to that black Porsche up at the front. The 58 car has been dealing with this pressure quite well, and Padavani's going to go around. Jefferson just losing the grip of the rear out of the corner. It looks like those rear tires are really the bane of all the drivers' existence today, because how many have we seen already facing the wrong way?
This kind of pushes Padovani down to 15th. So of course it is quite unfortunate for him. Comes around, Cobbs. Oh, a little bit of a poor exit. I think he does have to recover from that spin.
So looking back at Delp, he's not out of the woods quite yet. File still behind him as they come down the hangar straight. We're already 15 minutes into this race. We should be within the pit window at this point. Let's see if anybody tries to dare for an early stop. It hasn't really been popular so far this season. Stowe looks like that File is not quite close enough, and even though they've got the heavy braking down into the chicane, he's just got to ride in those tire tracks.
Because you can see the very nice heat haze that does add to the special effects as we ride on board the rear bumper camera of the. They go slipstreaming down towards Abbey. Okay, hard on the brakes they go.
James David is all over the back of Luke now. When he fell to 8th, it took him a while to try and catch the cars ahead. This is the first of them. And that 709. Oh, he's much stronger on the brakes and almost gets into the back of him, down into Brooklyn's. Wonder if this is the case where David maybe would want to pit early. He says no, he's going to stay out. That's the 1/3 mark now as they tick off another lap. Out of Cops. Can he get the run? He's got a good one. Momentum in favor of the 89 the road before he can catch Oliveira.
This sends Luke down to 8th. Of course, making use of a little bit of a slipstream. Of course, I think there is a distance limit to how much of a slipstream you do have in a car like like this GT4. Because closing the gap up by a little bit does Luke and David at this point.
Earlier, we were watching the battle for P4, and though that's separated slightly, LeBlanc is still applying a lot of pressure to Prue. 79's got a mirror full of that 542 machine. They get on the binders, down into Abbey. Ooh, oh, and a bit of a miss on the second apex for Prue. Here comes LeBlanc. He's going to look to the inside into Bridge, but that track switches back as they come into Priory. Could still get an over-under here if he gets a mighty launch. It's a decent one, still not enough as it's a short straight. Liviera now catching up with them because of all that racing. On to Woodcote once again. Blanc had a whiff of it, but it didn't work out for him. Wonder if he'll be willing to sit around for the next time through. At the top of your screen, you can see McDonald is continuing to peel away from everybody as he set the fastest lap of the race and is now 3 seconds ahead of Romano. Watching from over the shoulder of LeBlanc. Gains a lot of time out of Copse into Maggots and Beckett's. But if you can get a good exit here, Wayhan, he might have a shot into Stowe.
Well, it would appear that both drivers have an equally good exit. Yeah, both of them nailed the exit perfectly. So, yeah, slipstream by Prue providing slipstream to LeBlanc. They go braking into Stowe corner. Oh, I think it would appear that Prue had a little bit of a slower mid corner, but I think he's got a little bit of a better exit into Vale. They come breaking into Club corner. This is where they would begin closing up the gap.
He does close it a little bit. It looks like you're right. It seems as though Prue maybe mid-corner backing the car up, maybe getting it set up and knows that it's unlikely he'll be attacked at that point in the corner. So he feels pretty safe, more focusing on those corner exits, and he definitely needed it there because once again, he is slow for the second time in a row. LeBlanc wasn't as close this time. He's still going to poke his nose in down into Priory, but nothing doing.
Prue must be beginning to slightly buckle under pressure. You know, it's not always easy to have, especially another car which is so close to your rear view mirror. Because he is balancing between trying to keep his pace and also defending himself against his teammate.
Exactly. So they do not want to tangle. That number one rule of racing, don't take out your teammate. As hard as they might dice, he's got to at least give a little bit of room to one another. Behind them, Delp starting to be chased down by File. In fact, File very strong on the brakes into Copse corner, gains a little bit, but botches the exit, falls back and loses all that he had gained on the entry. This is down to 0.3 of a second. Talk about getting tense. Delp is another one that is feeling it.
He sure is slipstreaming down the hangar straight. 0.4 of a second between both drivers. And they begin braking for Stowe corner. I think, yeah, look, they would still have to sit around for a little bit before File can close the gap up with Delp.
Incredibly, we still have all 19 starters out running. So though there have been some dramas and a little bit of contact with the walls or other cars, nobody's had enough damage to call it a day. We're just about at halfway here. That's a good sign. It's a somewhat smaller field today as well, so not losing too many is a good thing here for us. Certainly more action to try and watch out on track. The two of them, Delp and File, under bridge, through bridge, and into Priory. Still File looking like he's maybe not able to close up as close as he needs to.
Yeah, I think File would require a little bit more time in order to close this gap. You know, with this car, I think it is all about, you know, using few corners to kind of set yourself up. He goes into the pits, and he is the first of the pitter.
He is indeed. He's the only one, unless we get someone from behind coming down pit lane soon. So let's see what the Pennsylvania driver is going to try in terms of strategy. Trundling down towards his stall. Looks like he hits it cleanly. Not seeing the car go up on the jack, so looks like it's going to be a fuel-only call. File is out and running and is going to return in 18th, second to last, but with clear track in front of him.
Yep, he is down to 18th at this point, but of course nobody has yet to make the move for the pits. We could see some take place within the next couple of minutes, because this is exactly the midpoint of the race. This is where the window opens up.
So we take a look at Padavani now. He's caught up to another driver who spun early on, Kenny Duval. They've both been trying to climb their way through the field. They've passed a number of cars along the way. Hilton, Simkovic. Obviously, Bertome had his issues and let them through without a pass. But it looks like Padavani might have slightly better pace than that 63 car.
Break up on the entry of Abbey. Both are teammates, and of course both drivers battling it hard against each other. Of course, we are riding on board Padavani at this point. Good use of good entry through bridge. Of course, a good use of the corner entry, the access tarmac through Prairie, and they go hard upon this left hairpin.
Switches back into Luffield. A long right-hander. And you can see just how frustrating it can be. Let's head to LeBlanc, though, because I think he's got to go on Prue. In fact, they're going to be side by side and make a little bit of contact. Somehow they managed to keep it going. Let's take another look at that one. If they actually touched, it was the tiniest of contacts there into Maggots and Beckett's. Whoa. Think they managed to avoid one another. And Olivier's watching this, licking his chops. He's still in 6th, but he's gained a lot of time, and he's now only 0.8 back from Eric.
Because Oliveira might think of taking advantage of this battling between the two teammates. Of course, you know, as we spoke about earlier, you know, as you battle other cars, when you have other cars in your proximity, it's all about trying to not exactly lose too much pace as you try to make your battling work with the other driver. Of course, Oliveira sits a second behind LeBlanc, but he could well close this up if the battling between LeBlanc and Prue carry on.
Yeah, certainly this puts LeBlanc in an awkward position, since if he starts to attack, he'll start to become vulnerable to that 44. Does he maybe try and pit here to get out of this situation? See if he can leapfrog Prue? Or does Prue maybe duck in? Nope, he's going to stay out. And LeBlanc must be listening to us, because down he comes.
So does David. He takes the pits. He is the third driver into the pits.
All right. So we're seeing a couple front runners now come in. We've already had Kenny Rodriguez and Glenn Bowen take their stops, but they're farther down the order. Blanc and David down cleanly into the stalls. Blanc should be the first out, and indeed he is. He will return behind Padavani and ahead of Bertome, and a ton of clear air. So the 542, this will work out nicely if he's able to hot lap and if his tires are still in good condition. Simkovic, it looks like, also pitting. Should be getting close to the end of the pit window. Let's check in on our leader, Mark McDonald. Ever since the drop of the green, with him on the pole, he's been holding the lead and hasn't looked back. You can catch flashes behind him. It's about 3 seconds between himself and Romano.
McDonald's does have more than 3 seconds ahead of the rest of the grid, so he does have quite a comfortable margin for himself as he seeks to maintain this throughout the rest of the race.
And McDonald's going to elect to come in. I do believe we are probably at the end of the pit window now. Romano, though, stays out. Oh, so not quite at the end of it. Flores comes in. Excuse me, no. Flores stays out. Prue comes in. Oliveira is also pitting. Eric Luke decides not to. Riding on board with the Canadian, Marco Oliveira. McDonald's just done now and gets going. However, he's going to come out just behind Delp. That's going to be a little bit of traffic, could be a thorn in his side. Depending on how much Delp plays along with him, could cost him a little bit of time. Looks like Prue is now going to be our second highest pitter behind McDonald. Oliveira third. LeBlanc fourth, and David returns fifth of the drivers who have stopped. He's 10th overall, but this battle here on screen, LeBlanc and Oliveira, this is for position. This has not happened due to strategy. They've both just come out of their stops, and as they come down through the hangar straight up to Stowe, a good gain from LeBlanc, looking to the inside, but he doesn't have enough and backs out of it.
Yeah, build out of the attempt at the last minute, of course, where you're not close enough. It's usually not worth making the move work into the corner. Does not do it either into club.
So is Romano going to come in this time? This is quite an impressive length of time to take that fuel cell, and it looks like he is going to pit. He'll be followed by Flores. I assume Eric Luke's going to follow them. He still needs to come in for fuel. So does Delp and Duval. They're the only ones left now on track needing a scheduled stop. Luke is in. Romano hits his stall. See Luke already passed the cones. There's the lavender racing machine of Giovanni Romano. Where's McDonald's? Ooh, McDonald's coming out now. He's going to have better momentum, but I think a lot of time was gained by Romano in that pit sequence. It's about half a second between them, whereas it was 3 seconds before.
It has been reduced to just 7-8 tenths of a
very marginal in pit lane. And I almost wonder if it was more of a mistake from McDonald, because Flores also caught up. It wasn't just a case of Romano having a lightning quick in and out lap himself. Right on board with Giovanni now. Well, the lead is on. I didn't think McDonald would be able to be touched based on the pace during his first stint. He's got to hold him off for 15 more minutes, 14 more minutes technically. And I think Duval and Cristelli are in a side-by-side battle right now. This is heading down to Vale. The 09, he's actually going to back out. Let's take a look at that one, see how that started off since we came in right in the midst of it. So this is down into Cops. Does it kick off here with a mistake, or is it out of... Clearly ran into Kenny in the process. Glad we looked at that.
Your teammate, because Padovani sits 5/10 of a second behind Duval. Of course, he is taking a more defensive line, and they come upon Megas and Beckett. Of course, this is where, if you get the best line, you do stand a chance of exiting this corner faster than the car, which might take the slower line. Duval leads Padovani through the exit of Chapel and into the hangar straight.
Meanwhile, it's been getting closer up at the front. Not sure if Romano may be saving his tires a little bit here because suddenly he's picked up the pace, or maybe McDonald took the best out of them. Whichever it is, staying at half a second, the 99 keeping McDonald under threat.
Romano goes ever so close to McDonald's. This is getting into, I guess, into the comfort zone, or rather out of the comfort zone of McDonald's, as he was earlier used to having a larger gap ahead of the rest of the field.
Yeah, this has got to be causing him a little bit of consternation. He's not got a lot of room. The good news for both of them is with David having the points lead and him being well back from them, I believe Romano will take the points lead. McDonald's probably not into second, but will gain a whole lot on James David. And if he can manage to keep Romano behind, that'll cut down his gap to him. They come through Maggots and Beckett's one more time, but look at how confident Romano's car is. Definitely tightening things in as they come onto the hangar straight, and he is trying to get as much slipstream as possible following in line.
Certainly good use of the slipstream as they go through hangar straight. Of course, these cars are reliant on momentum, more importantly. Stowe corner, they go around, good exit by both cars. Of course, McDonald still does command his lead ahead of Romano.
Let's not count out Flores back there in third. It's about a 2-second gap, so he's certainly not quite in the mix, but he could be, depending on how things unfold in these last 10 minutes. This is our best battle right now between first and second place. Everything else is much farther apart, so let's watch to see what happens with this lead. Into the Priory, Brooklands and Luffield portion of the lap one more time. Mono on his 2 wins would I'm sure, love to tie up with David on overall wins. But in the meantime, McDonald's still looking for his second one. It's been a long dry streak since round 1 at Laguna Seca.
Because we're coming towards the last final 10 minutes of this race. This could be about equivalent to 5 or 6 green flag laps on this circuit. Now his gap behind Romano sits at 1.7 seconds, this gap. Of course, he is seeking to close this up as they exit Chapel.
Yeah, I don't think he's quite close enough. For those wondering about James David, he's right now down in 7th. He is gaining on Oliveira, so we'll keep half an eye on that because that battle could suddenly become a lot more intense soon. Once he gets by him, I'm not sure that he'll have the time to chase down a top 5 position, though, because Wonka's another 3 seconds ahead of that. We'll continue to ride on board here with McDonald looking back at Romano. The Abbey chicane one more time. Oh, and we had a problem with Kenny Duval. I think it's the same corner that he had the problem on the first lap through Beckett's rather. Let's take a look at the replay here. So he's leading his teammate still. I think he may have touched the grass on the exit here. Watch the driver's left side. Yep, there it is. Ooh, the tiniest of glancing blows with the barrier as he collects the car. As we come back, let's go back to 6th now, because Oliveira suddenly has a mirror full of James David. He's seen other drivers pull out of the way for him, but that was earlier in the race. Is Marco going to be as obliging? Well, he's certainly not defending, and I think that's a lift, so the answer is yes. Oh, maybe not. He's looking for an over-under here. As a little wide goes James David. Side by side, it's a drag race up to the Maggots, Beckett's, S's. Oliveira once again going to give way. So 6th place now for James David.
Because both drivers doing it safely for each other, of course. These two drivers, it's all about trying to make the moves work. With cars like these that are reliant on momentum, it could well be the case of losing it, or rather giving at one corner only to kind of retake it at the next corner.
Don't need... Oh, and Duval's done it again. This time he did hit the wall. This one was out of cops. Let's take another look at this. Oh, that is not the track, buddy. Yep, and he's now retired, I can report. He's decided that that's enough action for one day, and he is our first DNF all day long. Still 18 cars running. Meanwhile, we've come back to the leaders. You can see that gap is even smaller now.
Mark McDonald not exactly having him to lose.
Parent, did anybody short fill? Farther back visibly, but the time and scoring was saying he was still only 3/10. Flores still chasing, starting to drop though. 2.5 seconds between them. Romano at this point just stalking that lead Porsche, waiting for something to happen, waiting for maybe an opportunity, a little slip up, a mistake from McDonald. That could do it. None has been forthcoming. But it is, these two drivers seem to be pushing this thing to its limit.
It is Predator versus Prey at this point. Romano being the Predator, he is for 0.5 of a second behind McDonald, so this is still within good attacking distance. Around bridge they go, of course. Where tires are kind of at this point, you don't want to take bridge too quickly. As tempting as it might be. They come upon this tight left-hander and also up to left field.
From Giovanni's perspective now. See if there's anything there. And I'm also kind of watching LeBlanc and Prue because they're back together again as well. Ooh, lost a little time the last part of the lap did Romano. It's back up to 0.5. Let's jump back to LeBlanc. He had a look into Priory, couldn't quite make it stick, but these two have been glued together, find themselves once again duking it out for position. This will be for 4th. Oh, that was a good run from LeBlanc. I don't know if it's good enough. Depends on how feisty he's feeling. Defensive move from Prue just to keep him from trying anything scary. So they're going to stay in line now into Maggots and Beckett's. Ooh, I think this is his best shot. He's got a big dose of the draft. LeBlanc staying right behind him. Prue holding as far inside as he dares. Now drifts back to the racing line. Going to be a little bit more shallow. Goes off the apex and LeBlanc pounces. Gets it side by side. A little bit of an overlap, but doesn't have the exit speed. They come down into the braking for Vale. Looks for another over-under, but there he is parked at the apex. Nothing doing.
But they do have a little bit of a slipstream as they come upon the run-up to Abbey. But then, Prue has managed to pull a slight gap ahead of his teammate. 0.5 at this point.
I think we're going to get the white flag this time by. It'll be a little tight here. Minute 55. But they're coming down now, and yes, we should get the white flag. This should be enough that timing and scoring should accept this. And it's back down to 0.4 of a second. Romano really wants this one. Does he dare throw away second place points, though, especially when he's gaining over Flores today? He doesn't need the win. Stick with this. Apologies to fans of LeBlanc and Prue, but when it's for the win, oh, and very strong through this sector. Look at that. I think he's gonna get a little bit of a toe, but I don't think this is gonna be enough. Romano will be able to reel him in more, but he's gonna have to set himself up for something later in the lap. They break into Stowe this time. Is he late apexing it? Is he trying to set himself up for something into Vale? If he did, it failed. He's not nearly there yet. In fact, he lost a little bit of time, maybe pushing too hard now. McDonald still soaking up the pressure. They come out of club, back up to that half-second gap. It'll take a mighty effort from the 99 to get win number 3 today. McDonald is looking impenetrable. Down through Abbey. Ooh, he's a little hot into that corner. A small mistake gives Romano at least a little hope. He's not able to take advantage coming down to Priory. He's running out of chances. Brooklyn's about the only place left, really. He's not there. All that McDonald needs from here on out is a smooth exit from Luffield, and he's got this one wrapped up. Not since round 1 has McDonald taken victory in this Porsche GT4, but he's going to finally get win number 2 here in round 7 at Silverstone. Victory for McDonald. Flores with 3rd behind them, and Prue is just barely going to hold LeBlanc back as they are caught by David at the end, but he was not able to pass them, and poor James David going to lose the championship lead with this one. From there on back, everybody pretty well spread apart. Some unfortunate days for a few people. Padavani comes to mind. Duval, who we saw take a DNF today. Kenny Rodriguez, Bertome. So we'll spare them the embarrassment and head to break here. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around, on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Silverstone, round 7 of the GT4 Clubsport series. wound up going the way of McDonald, of all people. Here, the warm up made it seem like he didn't have the pace today, and lo and behold, he was playing possum. He took the win from pole position. He did have pressure at the end, though. Look at that gap. Half a second between himself and Romano. Giovanni had a good pit stop, and he seemed to have pace at the end, but just not enough pace to overtake. He took second. Then it was Jorge Flores behind them in third. A bit of a distant third, but not too far back. Just wasn't much of a factor today. Sebastian Prue also dealing with a lot of pressure, but winding up fourth, just barely ahead of Eric LeBlanc, who rounds out your top five. James David, who at one point was looking at a podium, falls down to sixth with his own mistake. And then Marco Oliveira finishes seventh behind him. Eric Luke was Eric Luke was eighth with Nicholas Delp in ninth, and Mark Feil rounds out your top 10.
Padovani comes home in 11th. Of course, he had started from 18th, so this is a remarkable performance by Padovani. Cristelli comes home in 12th, and Bertone, unfortunately, due to various incidents along the start of the race, he comes home 39 positions down from where he qualified. Kenny Rodriguez comes home in 14th, Spencer Semkovic in 15th, Brian Hotham in 16th, Matt Hilton in 17th, and Glenn Bowen, a lap behind, comes home in 18th. Kenny Duval, unfortunate for him, he had to retire, and he comes home in 19th.
And we've got our winner ready to talk to us, Mark McDonald, as we pull him in here. Mark, that was an impressive win considering the way things were looking in practice. Did you just not really focus on setting a quick time in practice? Because I was watching that and I thought, uh-oh, things are not looking good for you. And then suddenly in qualifying, bam, up at the top. Where's the difference? See if we've got a copy from Mark. Mark, are you there? Oh, looks like might be having a few technical difficulties for Mark McDonald. We'll let him try and get his mic set up here. Could be off celebrating as well. So looks like we won't quite have him. We've got our second place finisher as well as Wei-Han has caught up with Romano.
Hi Giovanni. Look, I think towards the latter half of the race, perhaps due to the pit stop, you came so close to Mark McDonald's, and I think it was such an amazing series of battling that happened towards the tail end of the race. So it is unfortunate that perhaps overtaking moves were very close but did not really happen. So Giovanni, could you please share with us the race from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty happy with the results. I didn't really have time to practice this week, so I sort of jumped in and did some warm up laps beforehand and hope for the best. And yeah, it was an interesting race. I think the key moment for me in terms of the championship is what happened with Mr. James David behind me. I looked at the replay; looks like he just got into me and spun off my back bumper. It looked a bit awkward, but that's a shame because I think it would have been a three-way battle between us at the end. But yeah, that didn't happen. So yeah, it ended up being me in the battle with McDonald there at the end. And yeah, if it was just one more lap, I think maybe I could have had a shot. But he crossed the line just before, just a little bit too late to get an extra lap. So yeah, that hurt a little bit, but it was a good race.
Yeah, very much so indeed. I think that was really close for herself. But look, I think we all enjoyed watching the battling at that point. Now, we are in fact racing at the old layout. We are not racing on the new Grand Prix layout, so it is a little bit shorter than what the new Grand Prix circuit uses. What do you think about racing on a track like this? There were a lot of straight sections with where slipstream did come into play, and of course we know that this car is very reliant on momentum. How do you think that kind of played into effect into the race?
Yeah, as you said, it's a momentum car, so there's a few corners before those long straights which are really key, and if you can nail them, you can gain a lot of time, or if you mess them up, you can lose a lot of time. And the long straights also cause slipstream to be a factor. So I think one of the big things was because I came out just behind McDonald there. Within about a second, I was able to get into his draft, and that allowed me to sort of tow along, and that's what kept us close at the end of the race.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Giovanni. Before we let you go, would anyone you like to give a shout out to?
Yes, the usual. Thanks to PRL for running this, and thanks to GSRC for the broadcast. Congrats to Mark for a win, and also throw out a shout out to George, who finished third today. I think it's his best result this season, so congrats to him.
Wonderful. And that was Giovanni Romano. Came home second this race, and Joe has caught up with Mark McDonald.
We're going to give it another try. Mark, do you have a copy with us? Well, it doesn't appear that Mark has managed to tackle his sound demons here. So, unfortunately, I'm not sure that we'll get to talk to him. Give him a little bit more time here to see if he's going to get it sorted out. Nope, looks like no dice there. So, we're going to have to give a few thank yous and close out. Sad that we didn't get to hear from him about what made the difference between practice and qualifying. A big thank you goes to our sponsors. Of course, Simulation Motorsports Affinity. SimMSA.net is where you can find them at if you want to try and get involved with the worldwide sim racing community. And also a thanks to ButtKicker. They can be found at thebuttkicker.com and have all kinds of products for your sim rig. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast, you can see listed on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Wei-Han, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel and our Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel. Instagram is at GSRC_Graham. And if you'd like to support us, we've got a merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com, linked in the description below. Make sure and check that out and grab some swag. The next race is going to be at Silverstone. Or excuse me, no, not at Silverstone. It's at Road Atlanta, rather. Need to update that script. That'll be Road Atlanta 2 weeks from now. Unfortunately, the last one we're going to get to cover here for round 9. They will be racing again a week from now. We won't be on the air for that one. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.